Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with a preview of the Classics Today Insider special subscriber video of the 10 best recordings of Riccardo Chailly. And in honor of the 10 best recordings of Riccardo Chailly, I'm going to use this preview, use up the time here to discuss the Symphony box. Now, the Symphony box is I saw it on Amazon, it's still available for like $900 or something insane. But even if all of this stuff in the box isn't still available, and I sort of took the lid off of it here, most of the stuff inside the box you can get one way or another. It's actually rather colorfully arranged. Isn't that nice looking? It's attractive here. I mean, I wonder if this is original jackets. I have all these things separately, so I never really care. Oh yeah, look, that's an original jacket. Some of it is original anyway. Yeah, some of it is, some of it isn't. But anyway, the point is that there's some really, really great stuff in there and some really, really dull stuff in there. And if you want to know what the 10 best recordings are, some of which are not symphonies, so they're not in the Symphony box, you will have to take a look at ClassicsToday.com as a subscriber and go see what the answer to the riddle is. In the meantime, let's talk about this box because it's a wonderful opportunity to review Chailly's career as a conductor. Happily, this thing came out in time to capture his Beethoven cycle with the Gewandhaus. And it's a really, really good Beethoven cycle. You know, Chailly specialized in fin de siècle, sort of late romantic 20th century music. He really did. And he was not a great exponent of the Viennese classics. He did virtually no Haydn or Mozart. And, his life began with Beethoven, effectively. But the nice thing about this is that he adopted enough of sort of period instrument practice, that is zippy tempos and lean textures and powerful accents, to deliver a really fine Beethoven cycle when it finally came down to it. And it's with the Gewandhaus, and it's really good, and it's in here. He also did a lot of overtures. You get a lot of couplings here. You get Namen's Fire and King Stefan and Egmont and the Ruins of Athens and Coriolan and Fidelio and the Creatures of Prometheus. It's a lot of stuff. It's full discs, full of jolly fine music making. Then we've got his Brahms cycle. Now this is with the Concertgebouw, and it's rather a snooze. It's not terrible. It's typical Concertgebouw. It's very pretty, but it's kind of dull. It just doesn't compare with the great Brahms cycles. And Chailly is a conductor who he's not a very demonstrative guy. He's a marvelously kind guy. I interviewed him. He's one of the nicest, most normal people I've ever spoken to. He's intensely musical, rather subtle in the way he handles things. And he did those phenomenal Brahms piano concerti with Nelson Freire, so he can certainly do it. But this Brahms cycle, I think, it's just too comfortable. It's very, very pretty, but it's comfortable. And for that reason, I find it a little bit dull. But some of the couplings are rather cool, at least as presented here. I like it when they fill up the discs. You get Webern's Im Sommerwind, which is not your usual Brahms coupling, and the Schoenberg Chamber Symphony No. 1, that's coupled to the Brahms third, and it's a good Brahms third. I just wish the first movement had a little bit more oomph. After that, it's really good. And then the fourth here, with the 5 pieces for orchestra by Schoenberg, which is really rather nifty. Now, one of the problems, wait a minute, we've got, do we get both of them? I'm looking here. Oh yeah, we get both Brahms cycles and his remake with the Gewandhaus Orchestra that contains original versions and bits of things. But I have to say, this Brahms cycle also does kind of the period instrument thing. It's faster, it's zippier, but I find it rather dull. I actually like the first one a little better. It's boring and pretty. This is just boring and boring, if you know what I mean. It just doesn't move for me. But you do get, some of the crazy little bits, orchestrations of the intermezzi and, the orchestrated Liebeslieder waltzes, orchestrated by Brahms, actually, which is fascinating. Some of the original version of the slow movement of the First Symphony. There's some really nifty stuff in here that I think gives it, and the alternative opening of the Fourth Symphony, it makes it worth hearing at least the alternatives. they're very, very intriguing because Brahms, as we know, like destroyed everything. You don't want anyone to know what his original thoughts were or his sketches were, but some of them have survived, and here they are. And one thing about Chailly is that he's always been interested in sort of interesting alternative versions of things. So that's really rather cool. And then we've got, let's say, the Bruckner cycle, which contains Symphony No. 0, the overture in G minor. It's a rather soft-edged, very lyrical approach to Bruckner, and I find it sometimes very pretty, but mostly fairly ineffectual, with one major exception, which is that glorious seventh he did with the Radio Symphony Orchestra of Berlin. It's really, really, really good. That's fabulous. But 8 and 9 are kind of soft-edged and soggy, so they were a disappointment to me. Some people liked them. They thought they were very beautiful, and they are. But I think Bruckner just needs more bite than Chailly and the Concertgebouw provide. Then we've got a Dvorak Carnival Overture and New World Symphony. Nothing special there, nothing special at all. A very good Franck D minor. Yes, it's very, very decent. Maybe a touch on the heavy side, but very, very nicely done. And the Symphonic Variations with Jorge Bolet, which cannot be bad. And it's not. Then we have the Liszt Faust Symphony with Hans-Peter Blochwitz tenor. This is a really good Faust symphony. You know, there are a lot of really good Faust symphonies. The only issue is whether you think the Faust symphony is a really good symphony. But if you do, then there are many fine choices in the Faust symphony, including Bernstein and Muti, recent ones that were very effective. And this is also another very effective one. It's beautiful. Then we've got the orchestration of the Berg Piano Sonata by Verbe. Remember, we just talked about Andrew Davis's orchestration of the Piano Sonata, which I didn't much care for, and Mahler 1. Okay, so we've got the Mahler cycle. Let's make our lives easy. Also with some interesting couplings. You get Totenfeier, which is rather cool, and the really interesting coupling, which I think is Mahler's Bach suite, which is, the suite arranged from the Bach suites into one suite, which gives you like bits of all of them. And it's very, very fine. It's really fine. Okay, so what are the great performances in this Mahler cycle? Number 1 is terrific. I don't like 2. I just don't think it's transcendental enough. It just seems to me, again, another one of those performances that's a little soft-focused. 3 is terrific. 4 is terrific. 5 is excellent. 6 is amazing. 7 is first-rate. 8, I think it's rather dull and not terribly interesting. 9 is fabulous. He did the complete 10 in Berlin. It's marvelous. And there are some other couplings here. There's the Berg 7 early songs. And let's see what else have we got here. Alphonse Diepenbrock in Grossen Schweigen. We don't hear that every day, do we? Let's see, there's the Mahler 8 and the 9th. Okay, and that does us for Mahler. It's really a very, very fine Mahler cycle by and large. The only little disappointment for me was number 2, I think. The rest of them, you'll have your favorites, but it's really, really good. It's really, really good. Then we've got Mendelssohn's Lobgesang, and we get the Lobgesang multiple times here. Let's see, which one is this one with? This is the London Philharmonic. This is an early one with Margaret Price and Sally Burgess. It's surprisingly good, and Siegfried Jerusalem. It's quite nice. But then we've got Mendelssohn Midsummer Night's Dream and the Lobgesang. Now, this is obviously a piece that he feels very, very strongly about. That's with the Gewandhaus. And Schwanewilms, that's it, and Petra Maria Schnitzer and Peter Seifert. And it's a little bit, it's like his Beethoven and his Brahms, sort of more periody. It's swifter and leaner and all that, and it's also very good. I think he had a real feeling for the work, and it's a beautiful performance in both cases. Then we've got the Scottish symphonies twice, and the opening sketch of the Scottish Symphony, first with the London Symphony, next with the Gewandhaus. And, there's a thing now to go back to like Mendelssohn's sketches and all that, but these performances are extremely similar, aside from the slow movement, which is much, much quicker this time around. Actually, the finale is quicker too. But you get to hear 2 contrasting Scottishes, the normal version and the modern version, if you want to call it that, the modern early version. I know, a little gimmicky, I know. But, they're fun to have. They're fun to listen to. They're beautiful performances, both. Yes, Messiaen, the Turangalila Symphony, a fabulous performance with thrilling playing by the Concertgebouw and a quite audible Onde Martineau. Then we've got a disc I just talked about as one of Dave's faves, the Mosolov Iron Foundry, Prokofiev Third Symphony, and Varese Arcana. Very nice of them to give us the whole disc, not just the symphony, because it's a wonderful disc as a disc. Now we've got Schumann. Okay, are you ready for this, guys? You got Schumann. We have both of them, yes, of course. The original Schumann symphonies, as Schumann wrote them, which is rather dull, uninteresting in my opinion. And then the complete Schumann symphonies as Mahler reorchestrated them. And that's interesting to hear what Mahler did. I don't particularly care for the reorchestration, actually. I'd rather hear Schumann's originals. What Mahler did was thin things out to make everything more transparent. And it works. It works very well. You hear everything you're supposed to hear. But he also made some cuts and did a few things. But beyond that, it made the music much less impactful because it's cleaner and clearer. You miss some of the weight. You miss some of the sheer power in the climaxes. It's very nicely made, but Schumann was not Mahler. And I think it's a fascinating commentary, one composer on another, and evidence of a fundamental incompatibility of style that I think is really kind of interesting. So the performances are marvelous. They're with the Gewandhaus, and they're really, really good. So that's fun to hear. Then we've got the Stravinsky Symphony of Psalms, and we also get Fireworks and The King of the Stars and the Song of the Nightingale. Chailly was a great Stravinsky conductor. He really was. And he did wonderful, wonderful work in Stravinsky. This is with the Berlin Radio Symphony. The Berlioz Sinfonia, thank God they considered that a symphony. Absolutely one of the best performances of that work that's ever been done. Tchaikovsky 5 with the Vienna Phil. And Manfred with the Concertgebouw, double. No. No wonder he didn't do much more Tchaikovsky. It's just not interesting. Not competitive, not interesting. And finally, I think this is the end because we're at the letter Z. He did a bunch of Zemlinsky, and good for him. We've got here Psalm 23, Symphony No. 2, and the 6 Metterlink Lieder. Next, the Lyrische Symphony, which is gorgeous, and the Symphonische Gesänge, the symphonic songs, with poetry by Langston Hughes. 3 of them are by Langston. 4 of them are by Langston Hughes. There's 7 in total, and Frank Horn and Jean Toomer and County Cullen. And it's in German for some strange reason, but the poetry is not necessarily. And that's really rather nifty, I think. Willard White is the baritone. He sings quite well. So that's a fun disc. The only thing that's not in here, unfortunately, is Seejungfrau, which he also did, and A Florentine Tragedy. I mean, he really devoted himself to Zemlinsky, which was good. Then we've got a bonus, CD 54. A lot of CDs. The Puccini Preludio Sinfonico and Capriccio Sinfonico, and the Verdi Sinfonia in C major, and Rossini's String Sonatas on CDs 54 and 55, along with 2 more, the Sinfonia al Conventello and Di Bologna, those early Rossini overture type pieces. And with that, we come to the end of the Symphony edition. A lot more good than bad, some surprisingly uninteresting Brahms, and you really get a sense of what this guy did. It's funny. You see what there isn't. There's no Sibelius. There's no Shostakovich symphonies. There's no Nielsen. There's a lot of late Romantic symphonic stuff. There's no Richard Strauss in here. It's rather interesting. He really did specialize in that late Romantic 20th century symphonic stuff, but there are some real lacunae in this discography, which which means that, Chailly's still around and still interested. There's a lot of stuff he could be doing, I suppose, but with the industry the way it is now, I don't expect any of that to happen. Still, what's good is very, very good, and there's much besides this. So in order to find out what that 10 best recording list is, please go to classicstoday.com and sign in as an insider and go have a look. It's up there. And if you're not an insider, the information on how to subscribe is below in the description of this video. Do please consider it. We'd be very grateful. It's a good deal, and you'll have a lot of fun checking out these special features and the thousands of others that are already there. So keep on listening, friends. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care.